Hi everybody. As you know, I have been obsessed with trying to obtain reproduction of the Pam A Rider-Waite Smith deck for the reproduction of the first edition from 1909 for several months now. It's all started with my purchase of the so-called original Rider-Waite Smith deck in May. I have since gifted that away. That's the one with the roses and lilies back. I have since obtained the vintage Rider 1993 original Rider-Waite deck with the roses and lilies at the back as well, which I am keeping. And of course the AGM from 2016, which a lot of us obtained this year in 2017, is a favorite of a lot of us. However, as we all know, the back was perfect, crackle back, the front, the artwork reproduction wise is great, but then the script is not pixies, aren't pixies. So that brought me to examine vintage 1970s pre-copyrighted Rider-Waite Smith reproduction decks, and that brought me to two particular editions. One is the so-called blue box, the light blue box with the world on the cover. It was by Rider & Co, I believe. I think one was Waddington, it says, and the other one has Fitzroy Street as the address. And that's the 1970s, I believe that's from the 1970s. And the early 1970s pre-copyrighted US Games edition. My own theory is that there is an overlap there. My own theory is that the blue box and the early vintage pre-copyrighted 1970s US Games edition are actually all printed by the same people in Switzerland, AGM. Because of that, I have a running theory currently that if you get the pre-copyrighted US Games early 1970s stock, you are essentially getting the same deck or cardstock as the blue box, because they all came from the same factory. Now, having said that, a lot of these stocks that are produced in the early 1970s are still being packaged and sold in the late 1970s, concurrently, from what I can see so far. I could be wrong, but this is my current running theory, concurrently with stocks that's been copyrighted from 1975 onwards. So anyway, bearing that in mind, my main focus then to see if the Rider-Waite Smith has copyright on the cards or not, and I focus my search on the ones without the copyright. And so I came to this. I found this on Etsy, and I don't usually go to Etsy for vintage decks. Sometimes I go to eBay, but eBay scared me off because a lot of the times the prices after bidding is quite ridiculous, and I don't really like bidding. I like to buy now, even if I pay a little bit of a premium. I like to have a peace of mind and just get things over and done with, rather than sitting there nursing an auction. I just don't have the energy to do that. But prices are often quite high, and I was willing to wait. I wasn't in a hurry, and I don't have to have it. I thought a pre-copyrighted Rider-Waite Smith deck would be great, but if not, it doesn't really matter because I'm really quite happy with my AGM. The other thing which brought me to pre-copyrighted Rider-Waite Smith is that because although there are cause to believe that the copyrighted US Game 1971 images aren't based on Pam A, there are causes to believe that in the course of US Games production or publication of the Rider-Waite Smith, that they have under their banner, under their brand, that they have actually published and distributed ones that was based on Pam A. And my current running theory is it's that one is the one that I believe to overlap in production between the blue box and the pre-copyrighted US games that are essentially the same deck because they're produced by the same people. And so because of that, consistent with that, then the images of the blue box and the pre-copyrighted US games from the early 1970s would have been based on Pam A. And I think this is probably why both versions are highly sought after, other than the cardstock. And we know AGM has great cardstock even with their current recent premium tarot of Rider-Waite, the one that we all like, the one that a lot of us liked, with the exception that it doesn't have pixie scripts on the cards, but it has the back of the original version. The reproduction quality of the images are great, and it looks like it's based on the 1909 version. And so I think that's probably why they're highly sought after. So with that in mind, I went on a search, and it was one of those days where it was like, something was calling to me. It's like almost as if there's a sort of web of events coming together, and I was called to meet it. And so I went, and there it was. And I looked at the cover, and I thought, well, this is a bit unusual. It was titled Pre-Copyrighted Late 1970s US Games, packaged for the Italian market. So the top looks a bit like a peach skin velvet suede-like texture, but I think it's actually paper made to look. So there it is. The bottom's pretty ordinary. It's just a rather... So I'm going to timestamp this. If you just want to go straight to the cards, you can go straight to it. I just had to say a few words beforehand because we all know what pre-copyrighted US games are like, and the blue box is also highly talked about, so I'm assuming that most of us already know what they're like. And so it has this particular translation, English to Italian, of all the titles of the cards there, and that's all there is to it in terms of the booklet. And so now we have the cards. So it's a bit warped, and they did say that it was very warped, and they have to straighten the deck. So it's probably a little bit more warped than this originally. So let's have a look at the cardstock. A lot of people who owns the pre-copyrighted 1970s US games and the blue box often talk about this sort of smooth, buttery feeling of unlaminated cardstock. So I'll try to show you the surface texture as best as I could here. There it is. As you can see, it's matte, and it feels like very waxy. It feels naked but smooth, like a lovely smooth surface of a well-waxed wood, but not too thickly layered. So you can almost still feel the grain of the paper. You can see there, you can look at there it is. So that's the surface of the card there. I'm quite curious to compare this with the blue box, whether it's Fitzroy or Waddington. There it is. Okay, so, and no copyright. Now copyright was enforced, or the copyrighted version, if memory serves me right, is beginning 1975. So based on the fact that there is no copyright here, I believe this was from this was probably produced, I suspect, by AGM in the early 1970s. Now in this box itself, there is no information about who printed the deck. However, in both the yellow box pre-copyrighted US games and the blue box, I believe the printer is named. and I would love to be able to check if in both cases they're printed in Switzerland, and in both cases printed by A.G. Müller. So I will do a comparison between this and the more recent AGM's version in a different video. I would love to be able to compare this with US Games pre-copyrighted early 1970s yellow box and Rider's blue box as well from the 70s, and see if they are in fact not the same cardstock, because they're in fact was produced by the same printing company basically. So let me go straight to the back here. So only one blank card instead of two. I'm not quite sure what that means. And this says Encyclopedia of Tarot, which came out in 1978, and that address, Park Avenue, is valid until 1980, I believe. So it placed this particular promotional card here to 1978 to 1980. The absence of copyright here placed this batch from before 1975. So my theory is that the cards, the deck itself, was produced before 1975, but was distributed and packaged between 1978 and 1980. In this case for the Italian market. This one here. So there is no information about who printed this or who, the printer. So I'll leave you there for now. Oh, one more thing. I believe that the early 1970s pre-copyrighted, whether it's by Rider or by US Games, are both based on Pam A. That's my running theory at the moment, even though US Games copyrighted images as seen produced by US Games themselves or other publishers seem to have been based more closely to Pam C, I believe. I have a video about that, I'll link that below. And I've relied on worldofplayingcards.co.uk or WOPC.co.uk. They have quite good images and discussions about the various Pam A, B, C, D. So one of the things that I look for, or two of the things, is the red etching on the lids of the Angel and the Lovers card, a very clear etching here in this fold here, and some red etching around the clouds. In the Sun card, I look at the wiggle here. So I do believe, my current running theory is that because the decks produced for both the 1970s blue box and the 1970s pre-copyrighted US Games yellow box are by the same printer, I believe that they are all based on Pam A. And I can't say for what US Games have done in terms of their post-copyrighted images, but the only image that has 1971 copyright US Games on it is my quote-unquote original Rider-Waite deck by Rider 1993. And those images resemble closer to Pam C rather than Pam A. So I think this really have completed my collection of the Rider-Waite Smith decks. However, if I can obtain a reasonably priced Waddington or Fitzroy blue box Rider from 1970s, I wouldn't mind it. So I'm going to continue to be on the lookout for one of those, but for now I'm really happy with this. So I'll do a comparison video to compare this and the AGM Premium Tarot of A.E. Waite from 2016 in a different video. I'll talk to you then.